Hey, what's up, everybody? So coming to you today with a fantasy matchup. This is what I'm going to call this. This is a breakdown video. This was requested for Keith Thurman and Terrence Bud Crawford. My boy Triple X again requested this breakdown, and I'll be honest, if it was something that I think was super realistic to happen soon, I probably wouldn't do this breakdown, because I'd want to save it. But I honestly don't believe this fight is going to happen. It could happen. They're both fighting. They're both competing. They're both top 5 welterweights right now. But I don't believe it will. I'll get into why I don't believe it will for a second. So this one purely falls on Al Haymon and Keith Thurman for why this fight cannot get made. Thurman came out and said that he wants, he came calling when he wasn't going to get anything else rolling for himself. He came out a few months ago calling out Crawford and said, send the contract, send the contract, send the contract. Well, I know Bob Arum contacted him, but Keith Thurman came right out and said $10 million. That ain't happening. He's not worth $10 million. To get in the ring with Crawford. It's a big fight. He would get, in my opinion, at least 5 is what he would probably get. But, he wanted 10. I believe Danny Garcia got offered $4 or $5 million. And even though Thurman beat Danny Garcia when they fought back in, I believe, 2017, Thurman has been inactive, and Garcia has about as big a name as Thurman. Thurman might have a little bit bigger, but I think they're pretty damn close. So, if Thurman demanded a little bit more than Danny, let's say 6. Let's call it $6 million. I don't know why he wouldn't take $5 or $6 million. That's big time money right there, and that's more than Thurman made to fight Danny Garcia when he fought him. I think Thurman made, I think they both made like $2.5 million each or something along those lines. And it's big time money to come over to ESPN and fight Crawford. It would be a pay-per-view fight. You'd probably catch something on the back end from the pay-per-view gate too. So it's like, why not go for it? But the thing is as the new term is these days that I've been hearing over and over, and so I'm going to use it for a first time, Thurman don't want that smoke, okay? Thurman doesn't want anything to do with Terrence Crawford, and to be quite honest, I don't think Al Haymon and the PBC really want anything to do with Terrence Crawford either, because they have to make a deal. They most likely have to go to ESPN to fight, and why do that when they pretty much have a monopoly on the welterweight division? They have in the top 10, I believe they have 9 fighters in the top 10. So the PBC does. So Thurman has other options. It might not be as big, quote unquote, but there are big options too. There's a lot of good fighters fighting at welterweight with names. It's the best division in boxing. So, this is why Keith Thurman would not fight Terrence Bud Crawford. But, let's get into the fantasy matchup of if they did fight, because it is a fight we might not ever get to see. And, if we don't ever get to see it, I think people would want to know who would win this fight or how the fight would go and their strategy. So I'm going to do it as if they were fighting. It's a full-on breakdown. We're going to discuss the what kind of fight each fighter needs to do against the other one, needs to implore. We're going to discuss if each fighter can win by knockout or decision. The impact the fight, a win would have for each fighter and the impact a loss would have. And then I'll give my, prediction on who I think wins towards the end. So let's jump in with who would be the quote-unquote favorite heading into a fight between these two, and that would be the undefeated WBO champion Terrence Bud Crawford. So Crawford coming into this fight, especially if they were to fight right now, he's been out for a while, but Crawford is bloodthirsty for a big-time fight, and this would be it. So what kind of fight would Crawford have to put in against Keith one-time Thurman? Well, I believe Thurman, I don't know if he wants to go in the middle of the ring with Crawford. So I believe Crawford needs to figure out the kind of style fight, which he always does, but he needs to not lose rounds because Thurman is the kind of guy that can get rounds, take rounds from you. But, you know, he has been inactive, so this would be the kind of fight that Crawford would need to, I think he would need to get aggressive early, but the body. He is a great body puncher, and I think he would need to attack Thurman's body especially. You know, we know he's going to time his shots. He's gonna box well. He's gonna, you know, try to outthink his opponent, which he does every time. But he needs to really hit the body, in my opinion. The body. Work his way on the inside. If he can work his way on the inside, I think that's a strategy to winning impressively, and he could possibly knock Thurman out if he did that. But that would be his style. To stay on the outside of Thurman only gives Thurman a chance to extend his arms and land a big shot and stuff like that. So I think it's body attack, work your way in, you know, time your punches. That's the kind of fight Crawford would have to do against Thurman. Now, do I think Crawford could win this fight by knockout? Absolutely. You know, although Crawford's not a one-punch guy, and Thurman has always shown a great chin, I think this would have to do with stamina, and a body attack on Thurman, in my opinion, could wear Thurman down, and Crawford could definitely beat him. Crawford perfectly times his punches. When he does knock people out, when he does hurt people, they are perfectly timed shots. They're never winging shots. So, absolutely, he could do this and, in my opinion, finish him. I don't see him knocking him out early. I think it would be a wear down, break him down type effect. But that's the kind of fight Crawford does all the time anyway. So definitely think that he could win. Plus, you know, Thurman's been soft to the body before. He has. He's been hurt with body shots. You know, his fight with Luis Collazo a few years ago, his fight with Josecito Lopez last year, got hurt to the body badly in both those fights. Excuse me. We'll get into that a little bit later, though, on that. Can Crawford win by decision? Yeah, I mean, definitely. He could outpoint Thurman, but, you know, the thing is Crawford doesn't allow a lot of fights to go to decisions. So he would definitely have to win a wide fight, and you know what? He would have to pile the points up. He could do it for sure. Definitely, but it wouldn't be like a normal fight. If Thurman makes it to 12 rounds with Terrence Crawford, I'm not going to lie, the fight could be close. Thurman is a damn good boxer, so it could be close, but I definitely think he could win a blowout decision or a close one. Either way, absolutely Crawford could win that. What would this fight mean for Crawford if he won? It would mean everything for Crawford, especially now because Crawford is dying to get a top 10, top 5 especially guy in the ring. You know, it wouldn't be what an Errol Spence victory would be, but it would be anybody else type, you know, like Manny Pacquiao, Sean Porter, Keith Thurman, Danny Garcia. That's the collection of fighters right there that Crawford wants if he can't get Errol Spence in the ring. He wants one of those 4 guys. Thurman would serve that, and that would be huge for Crawford. So it'd be big for Crawford, especially depending on how he wins. You know, you would really get a test of how Crawford could do against some of those guys, because Thurman's fought Danny Garcia. He's fought Sean Porter. He's fought Manny Pacquiao. You know what he can do against those guys already. Those are all closer fights. They were good fights. If Crawford could go blow Thurman out, he definitely could prove to everybody just with that win, like, hey, I'm the most feared guy in the division right now. You know, so that would be huge for Crawford, a win. A loss to Thurman, I think that brings Crawford down. It would depend on how he loses to him, you know. If he were to get caught and knocked out, that would definitely hurt him. Any kind of a loss would hurt his pound-for-pound status, but it would only speak to how good Thurman is more than how bad Crawford is. Because this is what people want to know is, how good is Terrence Crawford? You know, we know he smashed on everybody else, but he has not fought the guys of the welterweight division like Keith Thurman. So this would be, I don't know how much it would hurt him. It would depend on his performance, but I can't see Crawford not being competitive against anybody, you know, and that includes Keith Thurman. So, yeah, so I'm not sure how much it hurts him, but I don't think it would be that much because I can't see Crawford getting blown out by anybody, to be honest. All right, let's move on to Keith Thurman now. What kind of fight does Keith Thurman need to do to beat Terrence Crawford? Need to have? What, how does he fight against Terrence Crawford? What would be his key to victory? Keys to victory. Well, first off, it's the jab. I mean, when Thurman throws the jab, he is one of the best fighters in boxing, and he has a good jab. Thurman gets one punch at a time type things. He gets into those molds, and that hurts him because, he is a damn fine boxer. And against Crawford, if he doesn't jab, I don't think he stands a chance. So the thing about the jab with Crawford is good enough to where he doesn't necessarily have to jab his way in. He throws jabs, but he doesn't have to. He's smart enough to figure out his opponent and what his opponent's doing. So, Thurman would need to jab his way in and land those shots and land those timed long shots. He would have to set himself up, though, to land a long shot. And he would have to get aggressive. He could not fight that backing up fight the whole way. If he does that, he's going to lose. I think he does need to mix it up in the middle of the ring. I think he needs to throw off Crawford's timing, because the one thing that makes Crawford one of the pound-for-pound best fighters is his timing. His timing is damn near perfect. And Thurman would have to let Crawford know in the early rounds with his power, land power shots, but he does that by setting it up with his jab. And then once he lets him know he's there and he could possibly have the fight close, he just works himself into the big shots with the jab, works himself in. But laying up on the ropes, pot shotting, things that have worked against Danny Garcia in the second half of the fight, especially things that worked against, Sean Porter, they wouldn't work against Crawford. He would have to be more aggressive, much the way he was against Pacquiao in the second half of the fight in order to to have a chance here. And that's the thing. He's taking a bigger risk because Pacquiao doesn't provide the same kind of power at 147 that Crawford does. And Crawford only has that kind of power because he times his punches so well. So that would be what Keith Thurman has to do to win this fight. Do I think Thurman can win by knockout? Crawford has been stunned. He has been hurt. The Mean Machine, Kavaliauskas, hurt him. And it should have been scored a knockdown. When he put him down, I believe, in the 4th of December of last year. But Crawford doesn't get hit cleanly with a lot of shots. Thurman does, when he's aggressive and he plants his feet, steps into his shots, he does have very good power. But I don't know. I can't see him knocking Crawford out. It is possible. Anything's possible. I've seen Crawford hurt. I've seen Thurman with explosive power. But nowadays, I don't know. I just don't see him knocking Crawford out. I don't see it happening. So I'm going to say I don't think he would knock him out, but the possibility is always there. Could Thurman win a decision? You know what? If he fought the perfect fight, and not even necessarily the perfect fight, if he fought the right fight, he could win a decision here. Thurman is good enough, talent-wise, to win a decision against Terrence Crawford, I believe. But he'd have to have the perfect mindset and fight the very, very right fight in this one to beat him, even by a decision. It could be close. I don't think he would blow him out, but I think he could win a decision. So, what would it mean for Thurman and for boxing if Thurman beat Terrence Crawford? Oh, for Thurman, it would mean everything. Thurman is dying to get back into the mix. He was out for 2 years. That kind of pushed him back a little. Then he lost to Manny Pacquiao. That pushed him back a little more. He's still a top 5 welterweight, but he was regarded as the best welterweight in the world. So a win over Crawford, who's widely considered to be one of the pound-for-pound best fighters in boxing and, tied for first with Errol Spence at 147, this will be huge for Thurman to beat Terrence Crawford. Absolutely huge. For boxing, it would be big. Thurman is a good name. He's a very good name out there. People know Keith Thurman. He's popular. So it would be big. It would really spice things up. It would set up a Thurman-Errol Spence showdown, which would be easy to make with the PBC. It could set up a rematch with Manny Pacquiao. So it would mean a lot for Keith Thurman and for boxing if he were to beat Terrence Crawford. If Thurman were to lose, what would that do for him? What would that do for boxing? I don't think people would expect Thurman right now to beat Terrence Crawford. So I don't think it would hurt him too much, but it also would depend on how he, mentally would take a loss to Crawford and it would depend on how Crawford were to beat him. If Crawford went out there and whipped his ass with ease, and really beat him up, Thurman might consider retiring, stuff like that. That might fuck him up mentally. He's a proud guy. But if he fought close and hard and it was a good back and forth type fight and he didn't, and he was competitive, I don't think it would hurt him too much. I think he'd be okay from a loss, because I don't think many people would expect him to win this fight anyways. What would it mean to boxing? I don't think it would hurt boxing too much. I don't think people would be too surprised. So I think, it would help boxing, Crawford winning. I think it'd be better for boxing if Crawford beat Thurman. So now, who wins this fight between Terrence Crawford and Keith One-Time Thurman? And, I will say, I'm going to get into how the fight ends, but I'll give my prediction right away. And it's very clear. It's very direct. Nobody beats Terrence Crawford until they beat him. Until they knock him out or until the judges score a fight for him. I will not pick against Terrence Crawford. Unless he goes out and somebody makes him look average. And I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen. I don't see Kell Brook making him look average. I like Kell Brook. I think Kell Brook could be competitive, but Terrence Crawford has one of those things like Canelo, like Vasily Lomachenko have, that they can turn it on at any point. When Crawford got hurt, when he got stunned against Kavaliauskas, he turned it to another level. Crawford always does that. Crawford fights very good fighters. And, good fighters. They're not great. They're not top 10 guys because they haven't established themselves yet, but they are good amateur fighters. They're good, good solid welterweights that he competes against. And he absolutely decimates them. And he's been doing that ever since junior welterweight. I believe the last time a guy was truly competitive with him the whole time was probably Yuri Urkis-Gamboa back in 2014. He shuts guys down completely, and that's why it's going to be very hard for anybody to compete against him. But this fight right here, here's a couple reasons why I think Crawford wins. First, the style of the fight. I like Crawford's style against Thurman, and here's why. Because I've seen Thurman. Thurman isn't that aggressive type guy like he was against Pacquiao very often. He used to be that, and the last few years he stands back and he boxes. Because he gets hit more cleanly, and he tries to step into his power a little bit early, but he doesn't push himself as hard as he used to either. So, and he's tasted defeat. So, Thurman, with all that combined, and with him, his stamina issues, and especially the way body shots have went against him. Crawford is a murderous body puncher, and that would not bode well for Keith One-Time Thurman. Thurman has been hurt against Luis Collazo. He almost bent Thurman in half. How Thurman made it out of that round, I do not know. Then the other fight where he got hurt badly to the body was against Josecito Lopez. Josecito Lopez almost knocked him out. So this guy's been hurt to the body before, and I'm sorry, man. The part of the way that Crawford breaks you down is body shots. And if you saw him against Julius Indongo for the undisputed world title a couple years ago, he murdered Indongo's body. It was body shots. It was a body shot that finished it. And Crawford is just mean, and he will turn it on. And I think that is the key to winning the fight in terms of in the ring. But the other thing is Crawford is bloodthirsty for a big fight. He has not been able to land one of these big top dogs. And it's frustrated the hell out of him. He really doesn't have that marquee name on his resume. And I don't include Amir Khan because Khan was way past it, and I think most people know that. So he doesn't get the credit that he has deserved. He's beaten some very good fighters, but no marquee names. Thurman would be that. And Crawford would be fucking hungry. And you know what? Thurman, he just doesn't have that same hunger that he had years ago. And now he's tasted defeat. So going into the fight, I think Thurman would have one of those mentalities where, well, I'm going to give it my best, but if I lose, I lost to the best. When you already mentally beat yourself like that, you know, there's no way you could beat a guy who's as hungry as Terrence Crawford. So, Terrence Crawford all the way. I think he wears down Thurman and stops him in the late rounds, or he wins a one-sided decision and retains his WBO title. So, I hope you guys hung in the whole 20 minutes because it's a big-time matchup. Hope you enjoyed it. That's the breakdown of Terrence Crawford versus Keith One-Time Thurman, a fantasy matchup. All right, guys, that's it. And thank you to Triple X again. That's it. True Boxing. You've been hit with the truth.